day G9. It's good to be back and I'm glad to present to you again another topic which is under the third quarter. So for this week, we have the quadratic functions and its forms. So before I start discussing our lesson, I want you to get a copy of your module and of course a pen if possible, and if you have a graphing paper, much better kasi mag-start na tayong mag-graph or I'll discuss some of the graph of the quadratic function. So before we start, I want to present to you the objectives of our lesson.
Quadratic function and its forms. The main objective of this lesson is for you to represent and transform the quadratic function defined by y equals ax squared plus bx plus c into the form y equals a multiplied by the quantity of x minus h quantity squared plus k. Let's start with the definition of a quadratic function. What is a quadratic function? A quadratic function is a polynomial of degree 2 by the equation f of x equals ax squared plus bx plus c, where a, b, and c are real numbers and a is not equal to 0. So the reason why a should not be equal to 0 is the same reason with the quadratic equation why a is not or should not be equal to 0. Because if a is equal to 0, our function will be linear and not quadratic. So a standard form of a quadratic function is written as f of x equals ax squared plus bx plus c, or y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So same lang yan. F of x is equivalent to y. So the quadratic function in standard form has three basic parts. We have the ax squared or the quadratic term, the bx which is the linear term, and c which is the constant term. A quadratic function is a many-to-one or specifically a 2-to-1 relation. So f of x equals ax squared plus bx plus c is the standard form of a quadratic function. So always remember that the value of our function, the value of our f of x, depends on the value of x that is substituted in our quadratic equation. So in determining the coefficients, always remember that our quadratic function must be written in standard form first. So the standard form of a quadratic function is ax squared plus bx plus c equals f of x. Okay? And the coefficients that we are determining here are the values of a, b, and c. So for example, we have f of x equals negative 6x minus 9 plus 3x squared. So we have to rewrite it in its standard form. So this will become f of x equals 3x squared minus 6x minus 9. And from the given, we can determine the three parts of the quadratic function. We have the quadratic term, which is 3x squared, the linear term, which is the negative 6x, and the constant term, which is negative 9. And from this, we can determine our coefficients. A is equal to 3, b is equal to negative 6, and c is equal to negative 9. Now, let us proceed with the two different forms of a quadratic function. Aside from writing the equation of a quadratic function, there are two other ways of representing it. We have the table of values and the graph. So let's start with the table of values. I have here an example written as f of x equals x squared plus 2x plus 1. Okay, so as we can see, this is a quadratic function because this is a second degree polynomial, and this is a function written as f of x equals x squared plus 2x plus 1. Now, this table is a representation of this function. Ngayon, ipapakita ko sa inyo how can we determine a table if that represents a quadratic function or not. Okay? So, for this example, as you can see, we have two rows for our quadratic function represented in table of values. So, we have the value of x and we have here the value of y or the f of x. Okay? So, yung values of x natin, this will come from the number line or the values from the x. Okay? So, we have negative 2, negative 1, 0, and 1, and 2. Okay, and then when we substitute the value of negative 2 as x here in our function, ang value ng f of x natin will become 1. Same is true with negative 1. When we substitute negative 1 in our quadratic function x squared plus 2x plus 1, then f of x will become 0. Same is true with 0, 1, and 2. So, kapag sinubstitute natin siya sa ating quadratic function na x squared plus 2x plus 1, so the values of our f of x will become 1, 4, and 9 respectively. Okay? So, ganun ang structure ng ating table of values. Ngayon, I'll explain paano kapag ang given lang sa inyo is a table, how can you determine if that is a quadratic function or it represents a quadratic function or not. Okay? So, first, we will start with the values of x and then the values of y. We have to see the change of x and then the first change of y. So, ano ibig sabihin nun? Titingnan nyo po yung difference ng values natin sa x and then difference ng values natin sa y. So, let's start with 2 here. Okay? So, from 2, pupunta kayo kay 1. 2 minus 1, that is 1. 1 minus 0, that is 1 also. 0 minus negative 1, that is positive 1. And negative 1 minus negative 2 is positive 1 also. Okay? So that is the pattern. Let us look at the first change of y. Again, magsisimula tayo sa rightmost values ng ating table of values. So we have 9 minus 4, that is 5. 4 minus 1, that is 3. 1 minus 0, that is 1. And 0 minus 1 is negative 1. Okay? And after we have determined the first change of y, for us to determine if that table is a representation of a quadratic function, you look for the second change of y. Okay? So for the second change of y, ito yun. Okay? So this is a representation of a quadratic function. I have here another example of a quadratic function and the representation of its table of values. We have f of x equals x squared plus 2. Again, another table of values is flashed on your screen. So for us to check if that is a representation of a quadratic function, you have to get the change of x and then the first change of y. Okay, so let's start with the rightmost values. 2 minus 1, we have 1. 1 minus 0, that is 1. 0 minus negative 1, again that is 1. And negative 1 minus negative 2 is positive 1 also. Next, for the first change of y, 6 minus 3 is 3. 3 minus 2 is 1. 2 minus 3 is negative 1. And 3 minus 6 is negative 3. Next, you get the second change of y. We have 3 minus 1, that is 2. 1 minus negative 1 is 2. And negative 1 minus negative 3 is 2 also. Okay? So, may nakikita na ba kayong pattern na parang similar sa binigay nating example kanina? Okay. So, before we summarize it, I have to give you another example. We have f of x equals x squared minus 6x plus 5. And another table of values is flashed on your screen. Okay. First, change of x muna tayo and then the first change of y. Okay. So, for the change of x, we have 2 minus 1, 1. 1 minus 0, 1. 0 minus negative 1 is positive 1. And negative 1 minus negative 2 is positive 1 also. Next is the first change of y. We have negative 3 minus 0 is negative 3. 0 minus 5 is negative 5. 5 minus 12, that is negative 7. And 12 minus 21, that is negative 9. Okay. And then, let us look for the second change of y. We have negative 3 minus negative 5 is positive 2. Negative 5 minus negative 7 is positive 2. And negative 7 minus negative 9 is positive 2 also. Okay. So, anong napansin natin sa tatlong example na binigay kanina? Okay. So, I want you to observe that a constant change in x, or yung triangle x, produces a constant second change in y, or yung ating triangle y. If two variables are related in this way, then the function is said to be quadratic. Therefore, a table is said to be a quadratic function or represents a quadratic function if equal difference in x, so for this case, yun yung 1, pare-pareha sila, produces equal second difference in y. So, kung mapapansin nyo, yung first change in y natin ay iba-ibang values. Pero kapag tinignan natin yung second change in y, ay pare-parehas din sila ng values, which is 2. Okay, so if it produces an equal second difference in y and equal difference in x, then therefore, that table represents a quadratic function. Now, let us proceed with the graph of a quadratic function. So, the graph of a quadratic function is called a parabola. And the parabola has three major parts. Okay, so yung di-discuss ko ngayon is yung tatlong major parts and I want you to familiarize yourself with those parts, but it does not mean na ito lang yung parts ng parabola. A parabola may contain different properties which will be discussed on the next lessons of this quarter. Okay, so for now, familiarize yourself with the vertex, axis of symmetry, and the intercepts. So a parabola may contain a vertex, or will always contain a vertex rather, because the vertex is the turning point of the parabola and is the lowest point if the parabola opens upward, and it is the highest point if the parabola opens downward. Always remember that each parabola contains a distinct vertex. Isa lang ang vertex ng isang parabola. Okay, and then the axis of symmetry is the line perpendicular to the x-axis passing through the vertex. When we say perpendicular or perpendicular lines, these are two lines that intersect at one point and creates a 90 degrees angle. It is so called the axis of symmetry because it divides the parabola into two parts which are mirror image of each other. Okay, so ang ibig sabihin lamang nito ay ang axis of symmetry is a line which passes through the vertex nga and perpendicular to our y-axis, okay? Our x-axis rather, perpendicular to the x-axis, and then it divides the parabola into two symmetrical half, okay? So kapag dinivide natin si parabola gamit ang axis of symmetry, ay magkakaroon siya ng two parts which are a mirror image of each other. Next is the intercepts. The x-intercept and the y-intercept are the points where the graph intersects the x-axis and the y-axis respectively. The parabola may or may not have an x-intercept, but it always has a y-intercept. So this is an example of a graph of a quadratic function. So I have here an image of a parabola. Okay, so I hope na natatandaan pa ang itsura ng Cartesian coordinate plane. Okay, so this horizontal line here is our x-axis. Okay, yung nakahigang line. And then itong patayong line naman na to is our y-axis. Okay, and then of course this is the origin. Okay, where x-axis and y-axis meet. Okay, so I have here a graph of a quadratic function. So this curve is called the parabola. The vertex lies at the lowest point of the parabola since it opens upward. Okay, so this is the vertex, the turning point of our parabola. And then, we have here the axis of symmetry. Ito yon, yung color violet na line. Which is, kung mapapansin nyo, that is parallel to our y-axis and perpendicular to our x-axis. Okay. And then, it divides the parabola into two symmetrical halves. So, ito yung tinatawag ko na kapag hinati natin sa gitna itong parabola gamit ang axis of symmetry ay parang nananalamin lang ang dalawang parte ng ating parabola sa isa't isa. Okay? And then we have here the x-intercepts, kagaya ng explanation kanina, a parabola may or may not have an x-intercept. So, sa case naman na to, meron siyang dalawang intercept kasi the parabola is below the x-axis. Okay, so it will be further discussed sa next lessons natin. Kung kailan ba dalawang intercept or x-intercept, kailan isang intercept, at kailan walang x-intercept. But always remember that a parabola will always have one or exactly one y-intercept. Let us now proceed with the minimum and maximum values of our function. Okay, so the minimum value of the function occurs at the lowest point of the parabola. There is no maximum value for such function. So when we say lowest point of the parabola, that means our parabola opens upward. So let me sketch a simple parabola here. So if a parabola opens upward, the lowest point is our vertex. Okay? So the vertex is considered as the lowest point. Therefore, that is the minimum value of our function. Okay? So that is the minimum value of our function. On the other hand, the maximum value occurs at the highest point of the parabola. Such a function has no minimum value. So let me illustrate again one simple parabola that opens downward. Since sabi natin, maximum value occurs kapag there is a highest point in the parabola, or the highest point of the parabola is the vertex. So therefore, this will become your maximum value. Okay? Such a function has no minimum value kasi nga maximum value lang ang meron. Either the maximum value or the minimum value can be called the extreme value of the function. So the extreme values can be minimum or maximum value depending on the direction of the opening of the parabola.
Now, let us proceed with the plotting of points given in our table of values. More often than not, table of values are already given and we just have to plot the points in our Cartesian coordinate plane. So, a while ago, we are given three different table of values wherein it represents three different quadratic functions. So now, we will use those points in the table of values to plot and create the graph of our quadratic function.
So the first example in plotting our points is the first example that was given a while ago. We have f of x equals x squared plus 2x plus 1, and flash on your screen is its table of values. Kanina I have explained paano nakapag-construct ng table of values gamit ang function na given. Okay, and sa ating table of values, meron tayong 5 points na buo. We have negative 2, 1, we have negative 1, 0, we have 0, 1, we have 1, 4, and 2, 9. Okay? Meron tayong 5 points para makabuo ng ating parabola. Okay? So, through these points, we can now plot. I hope di pa nakakalimutan kung paano mag-plot or mag-locate ng points sa ating Cartesian coordinate plane. So, the first point is negative 2, 1. We have negative 2, 1. That is here. Okay, so let me label it negative 2, 1. Next, we have negative 1, 0. So, that point lies on the x-axis. So that's negative 1, 0. Okay, next, we have 0, 1. Okay, so 0, 1, that lies naman on the y-axis. So that is 0, 1. Next, we have 1, 4. Okay, 1, 4. 1, 4. And the last one, we have 2, 9. So that is plotted here. Okay, so 2, 9. Okay, so if we are to trace the points plotted on our Cartesian coordinate plane, we will be able to create a parabola. Okay, so i-trace lang natin to ng bahagya. This may vary from the actual graph since ito ay freehand kong ginagawa. Okay, so I hope na inyo pong maiintindihan. Okay. So, the parabola should look like this. Okay? Wait lang. I have to reconstruct this parabola because this parabola might look like that siya ay pointed pa, but a parabola should not be pointed. Okay? Hindi siya dapat pointed. So, this is the illustration or rough illustration of our function f of x equals x squared plus 2x plus 1. Okay, so from the illustration, we can easily determine the vertex. So this is the vertex, right? Okay, and then the axis of symmetry is this line that passes through the vertex. Okay, and that is perpendicular to the x-axis. We have one x-intercept and one y-intercept. For the second example, we have f of x equals x squared plus 2. And a graph or table of values rather is flashed on your screen. So we have 5 points here. We have negative 2, 6, negative 1, 3, 0, 2, 1, 3, and 2, 6. Okay? And now let us plot the points. Okay? We have negative 2, 6, So we have negative 2, 6. Another is negative 1, 3. So I hope that while I am plotting the points, ay meron din kayong Cartesian coordinate plane, okay, na ginagamit para makapag-plot ng points. So as I plot, I hope that you are plotting with me, though ito ay nasa module na natin. Okay. So that is 0, 2. Para lang ma-refresh ang utak natin sa pagpa-plot ng points. 1, 3. It's 1, 3. And we have 2, 6. 2, 6. So dito siya. Okay. So now, pwede nating i-trace ang points na na-plot natin for us to create the parabola. Again, this is a rough illustration of the parabola. So this may not look like the very same illustration as it should be. Okay? I'm not using any device. Ito ay freehand ko lang ginagawa. Okay. But our exact illustration of this parabola will be or can be seen or found on our module. So for this, since our vertex lies at the y-axis, okay, so that's 0, 2, this is the vertex. Okay, so this is the vertex. So the axis of symmetry is the line that passes through the vertex and perpendicular to the y-axis. So therefore, sa case na to, our y-axis is our axis of symmetry. And then, ito yung isang example na tinutukoy natin kung saan a parabola may not contain an x-axis. Okay, so katulad nito, wala siyang tinamaan dito sa x-axis. So, ibig sabihin, the parabola is above the x-axis. So, wala siyang x-intercept. And then, the y-intercept naman is the same as the vertex because the vertex lies at the y-axis. So, we have the third example here. We have f of x equals x squared minus 6x plus 5. Okay, so for this, we are given 5 points again. We have negative 2, 21. We have negative 1, 12. We have 0, 5. And we have 1, 0. And we have 2, negative 3. Okay, so kung papansin nyo, medyo nabago ang ating quadratic function kasi ang increment ay nabago. Pwedeng ganito ang pagkakasulat ng quadratic function. It depends on you. Kasi kaya ako ginanito kasi meron tayong extreme scores here or may malaking score which is 21. Kaya para mas makita nyo yung parabola. Okay? Pwede naman ito, this is possible as long as kung anong increment ang ginamit nyo kay x-axis, ganun din kay y-axis so that hindi masyadong magiging distorted or magiging narrow yung ating parabola kaysa dun sa original niya talagang itsura. Okay? So, the first point, we have negative 2, 3. So, this will become negative 2 and then probably 21 ay dapat nasa in between siya ng 20 and 22 kung ganito ang increment na ginawa nyo. Okay, so this is negative 2, 21. Next, we have negative 1, 12. So, negative 1 lies between 0 and negative 2. And then, 12 is here. Okay, so that is negative 1, 12. Next, we have 0, 5. So, in between yan ng 4 and 6. Okay, so that is 0, 5. Okay, next we have, sorry, dito ko na lang ilagay si 0, 5. Okay, next we have 1, 0. So, 1, 0 lies at the x-axis. So, that is 1, 0. And then, 2, negative 3. This is plotted here. So, we have 2, negative 3. So, meron tayong 5 points. Okay? So, ang pinakambabang point is 1, 0. So, therefore, that is the vertex natin. So, let me trace again a parabola through these plotted points. And this may look different from the actual image of our parabola. Ito ay freehand. So, hindi siya masyadong pointed ha. Hindi dapat to pointed. It should be a turning point. Parang U-turn. Okay? Actual image of the parabola is presented naman sa ating module. So, yun na lang ang tingnan nyo. Kaya ko lang ipinakita dito is para malaman nyo how to plot the points of the parabola. Okay? So again, this is a rough illustration of the parabola na dapat maging itsura ng ating graph ng quadratic function.
So we are halfway done with our lesson. We are done discussing the quadratic function and its forms, such as the table of values and its graph. So now we will proceed to the second half of our discussion, which is the transforming of the quadratic functions in standard form into vertex form and vice versa.
In transforming quadratic function from standard form into vertex form, we have this definition. Now, I want you to familiarize yourself with the words standard form and vertex form because actually a quadratic form or quadratic function can be written into two forms. So, kanina paulit-ulit nating sinasabi, the standard form is f of x equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So, ngayon, I want to introduce another form of a quadratic function which is the vertex form. The quadratic function in standard form, f of x equals ax squared plus bx plus c, wherein a should not be equal to 0, can be transformed into the vertex form, f of x equals a multiplied by the quantity of x minus h quantity squared plus k using two methods, completing the square and the vertex form where h and k is, or hk, is the vertex of the graph of the function. Okay, so to simply put, let us further discuss this. Okay, so we are asked to transform standard form into vertex form. The standard form is f of x equals ax squared plus bx plus c. First, i-derive natin kasi we have to do the derivation para maging vertex form siya. So, ganito yung process niya. So, our standard form, kailangan muna natin na isulat siya into a multiplied by the quantity of x squared plus b over ax quantity plus c, wherein we have factored out a from the first two terms of our quadratic function. Next is we have to complete the square. Okay, so in completing the square, we have to use the formula b over 2 quantity squared. So we have b over a divided by 2 quantity squared. So we got b squared all over 4a squared, which is added to our quadratic function dito. Okay? So ito yon. Ito yung inad natin sa ating quadratic function. And then, minus naman natin sa labas. Okay? So, kung imagine natin siya, para lang itong completing the square, pero yung b squared minus 4a squared ay dapat dito natin siya inad sa kabila. Pero since ito lang naman ang dinederive natin, so dito lang natin siya nilagay, binaliktad lang ang sign. Okay? And then, we have to factor the perfect square, trinomial, and simplify the last two terms. Okay? So, we have factored out this perfect square. Ito yung perfect square trinomial kasi. So, it became x plus b over 2a quantity squared. And then, of course, yung a nasa labas pa rin. And then, we have added. Okay, so pinag-combine naman natin itong c minus b squared all over 4a squared. So, it became 4ac minus b squared all over 4a. So, which gives us a new form of f of x equals a multiplied by the quantity x plus b over 2a quantity squared plus 4ac minus b squared all over 4a. Okay, so also by substitution, we have to let h be equal to negative b over 2a and k, which is equivalent to 4ac minus b squared all over 4a. Okay, so wherein h and k are the vertex. hk is the vertex of our parabola. So thus changing the standard form into the vertex form such as f of x equals a quantity x minus h quantity squared plus k, wherein h and k are the values of our or the coordinates of our vertex. So ito yung formula na tatandaan nyo, okay? H equals negative b over 2a and k equals 4ac minus b squared all over 4a. So now, I have here an example wherein we are asked to transform f of x equals 3x squared plus 24x plus 47 using completing the square. So, gagamit tayo ng completing the square ngayon dito. And let us follow this solution. So, first, we are given an example, f of x equals 3x squared plus 24x plus 47. Now, we have to factor out the value of a from our first two terms. So, kaya natin nilagyan ng parenthesis itong dalawa. So, this will become f of x equals 3 quantity x squared plus 8x plus 47, or quantity plus 47. Next, we have to complete the square x squared plus 8x. So, this will become f of x equals 3 quantity x squared plus 8x plus 16, wherein 16 dito, we have used b over 2 quantity squared. Okay? Kaya po naging 16 yan. Plus 47 minus 3 times 16. Saan galing yung 3? Okay? Kaya naging 3 to kasi the value of a is not 1. Siya ay 3. That's why we multiplied it by 3 then. And then, times the value of b over 2, which is 16. Okay? Next, so from this, pwede na natin siyang isulat as f of x equals 3 quantity x plus 4 quantity squared minus 1. Okay. So simply, the value of h here is negative 4 and the value of k is negative 1. Next, another example is we're asked to transform f of x equals x squared minus 2x minus 4 using the vertex form. So gamit naman ng vertex form dito, gagamitin nyo ang values ng h at ng k. Yung formula na kinuha natin kanina na h and k. So we have f of x equals x squared minus 2x minus 4. So we have to determine the coefficients a equals 1, b equals negative 2, and c equals negative 4. Kasi gagamitin natin sila sa ating formula na h equals negative b over 2a. So substitute lang natin ang values. We have negative of negative 2 all over 2 times 1. We have 2 over 2, that's why h is equal to 1. How about k? For the formula of k, we have 4ac minus b squared all over 4a. Let us substitute the values. We have 4 times 1 times negative 4 minus the quantity of negative 2 squared all over 4 times 1. Simply, k is equal to negative 20 all over 4. Thus, k is equal to negative 5. Kung ilalagay natin siya sa vertex form, this will become f of x equals x minus the quantity of 1 quantity squared plus negative 5. So, kapag sinubstitute natin yan, this will become f of x equals x minus 1 quantity squared minus 5. Now, let us proceed in transforming quadratic function from vertex form into standard form. So, pabalik naman tayo. Dito, madali lang siya kasi in transforming the vertex from f of x equals a quantity x minus h squared plus k into standard form, ganito lang ang process na gagawin. F of x equals a times quantity x minus h quantity squared plus k will become a multiplied by the quantity x squared minus 2hx plus h squared quantity plus k. So this will become f of x equals ax squared minus 2ahx plus ah squared plus k. Mas madali siyang i-explain kapag may example. So let us proceed. So now, from vertex form, punta tayo kay standard form. We are asked to transform f of x equals 2 times x plus 3 quantity squared minus 4 into f of x equals ax squared plus bx plus c, or simply into standard form. So, para lang makita ninyo kung paano siya gagawin, ang kailangan lang natin gawin is to simplify the function. Okay? So, perform the operation x plus 3 quantity squared. So, this will become x squared plus 6x plus 9 multiplied by the value of 2 here outside minus 4. So, this will become 2x squared plus 12x plus 18 minus 4. So, combining like terms, we have two constants here. This will become f of x equals 2x squared plus 12x plus 14. We have another example. We have transform f of x equals 1/2 quantity x minus 4 quantity squared minus 1 into f of x equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So, same is true with the process. Okay, rewrite the given and then perform x minus 4 quantity squared. So, this will become x squared minus 8x plus 16 multiplied by 1/2, which is the value of a, and then minus 1. This will become 1 half x squared minus 4x plus 8 minus 1. Combining like terms, we have f of x equals 1 half x squared minus 4x plus 7.
So this ends our lesson for today. I hope that through this video, you were able to further understand the lesson. And of course, I hope that through this video, ay nasagot din ang ilang mga katanungan nyo regarding our module. If ever na meron pa rin kayong mga tanong or clarifications na gustong erase, you can always address those questions sa ating synchronous meeting. So I hope again that through this video, you were able to think, wonder, and explore mathematics through quadratic functions and its forms. Thank you very much.